Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. Family, thank you so much for being here tonight with me on the Numbers Matter podcast. I am your girl, Queen B, and we are here to talk about Kendrick and Drake beef. We're here to talk about the battle of the earth numbers because that's what they are. So we're getting a little in-depth look at this battle that they have going on. I am Queen B. You are watching BTV or Numerologics. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe because we have a lot in store for you. We also have a lot of great content that we've already done that you can go back and look at on the channel. So thank you so much for being here. And if you're here, that means you're a part of the Universal Supreme. That is us. So thank you so much for being here. And I also want to go ahead and say congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. They won the Super Bowl yesterday. Yeah. Let's clap for that. Let me see if I have any bells or whistles to go off for the Super Bowl for the Eagles. There we go. There we go. The Eagles won the Super Bowl yesterday. And if you missed it, I did give a prediction on the Super Bowl about a week ago. So that's on the channel. It's called Super Bowl Lytics. And then I also did a nice short that we have on our other mini podcast, I like to call it. It's called Beneath the Surface, Numerologics under 7 minutes. So they're like under 7 minute videos that break down different numerologics and different things like that on like people, places, and things, just like what this is about. Numbers matter. So we're heavy into it, and down the rabbit hole we go. So I want to thank you for being here. And let's get started. Let me pull this up. Let me get the slides up here because you know your girl always got the slides. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. All right. Here go the slides for tonight, and we're going to get into this. So let's start with Kendrick Lamar. So we know Kendrick Lamar did the Super Bowl show yesterday, the halftime show. And it's interesting. He's got this beef going on with Drake, and this beef's been going on for a little while now. But we're going to get into each one of their lyrics, and then we're going to go ahead and look at the songs that they drop back and forth and just give a little insight into like the timing of it and why I think that this beef has been going on so long. And I think it's going to go on for the next cycle, guys. So for the next 9-year cycle, starting next year in the one universal year in 2026, if they don't squash this beef by the end of the year, which doesn't look like that's going to happen at any time in sight, we're going to be dealing with this for the next 9 years. So this is very interesting. It has interesting implications. So I think it's something fun and it's something to look at. And also congratulations to Kendrick Lamar. Of course, he won those 5 Grammys. So that's interesting. So we're going to get into all of that. So let's look at Kendrick Lamar. So Kendrick Lamar is also known as K. Dot. We know that's his nickname. So we'll look at that. He is born on June 17th, 1987. So that makes him a Gemini 8 person. He is an air sign, earth number, an ASEN. And that means he's an intellectual, thinking, steadfast pragmatist. So these are going to be some of the differences that we look at when we look at Drake, because Drake is also an earth number. So he also has that steadfast pragmatism about him. And that's why we see that this battle has gone on so long, because these earth numbers, I'm telling you, they do not give up. Like whenever they are on to something, they believe in something, they don't give up. So that's why this is such a battle. It's been going on for so long. And that's why you see the tenacity and the back and forth that we'll kind of see with some of the dates in their songs and all that. So when we look at Kendrick Lamar, we look at that individual frequency of the 8. That's like the finance, it's concentration, it's spiritual, it's zealous. So he's up for it. He's up for the task. He's got that Saturn planet behind him with that 8 number. So he's on task with it, and he's going to put the work in. So there's no doubt about it. Also an 8 with that power of concentration. So 8s are always going to put the work in. And then he's got that Mercury, and it's interesting because, Mercury is the planet of communication. And, born in that period and got with that 5 in his personal universal code, that tells me that, he's quick-witted with it. He's quick thinking, he's quick-witted. Not somebody you might want to get into a battle with, someone that's an intellectual, quick-witted thinker. And he's also steadfast and pragmatic. So I think, I don't know. This is the battle that they're in with these earth numbers, and it's going to be interesting to see how that stacks up with the other. So like I said, his personal universal code is the 8, 6, and the 5. Okay. And this is really interesting. His opposition numbers are the 4, 1, and the 3. All right. And we'll see some similarities with that opposition. But what's it's so interesting is one of Drake's numbers is opposition to Kendrick and the same. So this is where we see some of the discord with them too. And I think it's the 3 and the 5. I think Drake's has a 3 in his code, and it's the 5. It's Kendrick's 5 that's in opposition to that. So Kendrick Lamar right now, he's in a 5 personal year because his personal universal factor is a 5. So that tells me he's in a 5 personal year. So, he's got a lot of opportunities. You see already he's won 5 Grammys in a 5 personal year. He has done the Super Bowl. That's a huge opportunity. It's huge exposure for him. That's dealing with the public. That's also indicative of that 5 energy. So that's very interesting to look at, to see what personal year they're in. And this is the kind of things that you go through. He is a life path 3. So, he's like, as Lloyd was saying, shout out to Lloyd. Shout out to Lloyd and the Live with Lloyd family, because I know there are some people here from that tonight. And I want to thank you guys for being here, and always shout out to Lloyd, the master teacher. And thank you for letting everybody know to come take a look at this and other things on my channel. Appreciate you so much for that. But yeah, so he's a life path 3. So that means for him expansion this year. Expansion, he's the learn expansion. I'm sorry. I was thinking he was at a 5 and a 3 personal year. So that to me means he's an artist. He's got a life path of the artist. He's got that luck factor with him. And also have to be wary of too much excess, excess of things. And we see that through the battle. But to me, when we look at these numbers and the frequencies that matter here, it's really the individual frequency that's driving a lot of this with their battle. And really just, a difference of opinions. And we know with rap, we talk about what is beef, and we'll get to that and all that, we're going to get to that because that's interesting. And this is what goes on sometimes in the hip hop community. It's like we can't ever be, it's always got to be like a competition, and I know like that kind of drives rap. It was kind of founded with like kind of the battle scene and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, still run to respect all the artists, and it shouldn't take that we have to beef with each other to kind of beef up revenue or whatever the case is, because that's what kind of that kind of turns into this day and age. But anyway, so let's look at Kendrick's name. His first name is a 24-6. His last name is an 11-2, so he's got a master number 11 for his last name. And that means his whole name adds up to a 35-8. And this is good for Kendrick. He's an 8 person, and his name, Kendrick Lamar, adds up to an 8. That's the name that he's most known by, other than his nickname K Dot, which also adds up to a 17-8. So these are very good indicative signs for Kendrick. That's what his name adds up to. So I think that's very interesting. He's an 8 person. His name is an 8. So this is very favorable for him. And I see why he's had the success he's had. That 8 is all about finance. It's all about business, executive, power of concentration, all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't surprise me, that Kendrick is successful as he is. And I think a lot of people didn't believe in him. And Drake was one of those people when they were working together at first, because they first got together in 2011. And Drake, took him on his tour with him. And at that time, Kendrick really wasn't that known of, so that's interesting. And the breakdown and how their relationship broke down. And that 2011 was a 4 universal year. So, that's a year of restriction. It's a year of foundations. And who knows, they went on that tour together. They put in the work. That's also indicative of that 4. And I don't think that's the time that relationship broke down. So like they started their relationship in a 4 universal year. And I think when we look at it, I think it broke down a couple of years later when we get to like going into that 5 year and then going into the 6 year. And that's really indicative. And that tells me as an astronumerologist, because sometimes when you're in that 4 year, you put in the work, you look at all the fine details, you get everything fine tuned. And then you get into that 5 year where it's kind of like you're dealing with the public. It's kind of a relaxed thing. It's a 5 universal year. Whip-de-woo, everyone's popular, everyone's out doing their thing. It's a year of dramatic changes and all that kind of stuff, of risk exposure and all that kind of stuff. So normally what happens is if things go too overboard in a 5 universal year, sometimes that 6 universal year, when it comes in, that's that year that's going to come in and try to balance that energy or make an adjustment for what happened in that 5 year. So that's what really happened with this beef when we look at it, because these are the years that it started to fall apart. They were doing some things. The last thing that they did happened in the 5 universal year, and it was a collaboration that they did on the ASAP Rocky album. So that goes to show, it was kind of like a teamwork, the thing that come together. And that's interesting because, beef equals to a 20. So that tells me with that word beef, if we look at it in the connotation of hip hop, that tells me, that it takes two. It takes two to have that beef. And there's a lot of other things, with that come along with that, because you have the two, and you got a master number 50. Nas literally ether Jay-Z. He had to do ether. So that tells me right there, that's like a spiritual thing. So all of this stuff is pretty interesting. Oh gosh, I have a lot of static. It's a lot better. Can you hear me clear now, Teresa? Thank you so much for being here too and letting me know. I hope you guys can hear me clearly now. I'm not sure why. Maybe the internet is still acting up a little bit. The light's on good, so all right. Good. Lana, good. Thank you, Lana, for being here. How's my sound? Is the sounds good? Okay. Yeah, so that tells me all of those things. And let me try to just get the slides pulled up. Good, it's fixed. Okay, thank you so much. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a disruption. I think we were only out for about 5 minutes. So that's not bad. But still a distraction. All right, that's okay. Let me just pull the slides up so we can get back into their lytics. And we really just went through Kendrick Lamar's lytics. And we found out, obviously he's that individual frequency 8, he's a Gemini 8. And we know that he has planet Mercury behind him. So he has the power of communication, the power of the thinking, quick-wittedness. And that 5 is also analyzing too. I know, even though he's not the Virgo part of it, but it still has that analyzing power. So that's something to look at with these two. So here we go with the slides. I'll share the screen like this instead of bringing it in here. Let's create the slideshow. Okay. And then I'll share the screen. This will be easier. All right. So here we go with Drizzy Drake. Okay. So Drake, AKA Drizzy Drake, or whatever. I think that's his nickname. October 24th. Oh, no. Okay. I hope it didn't go out. Okay. It was blinking just now. So this is so interesting, guys, because 6 and 8 are the earth numbers. Okay. 6 and 8 are the earth numbers. So that's why I said this is really the battle of the earth numbers. This is steadfast. That's why it's been going on since 2012. So this is interesting since 2012, 2013, around that cusp of those years. So this is so interesting that these two earth numbers are really going at it. So as where Kendrick Lamar was 8 with the finance, and then it's romance, Drake is a number 6 where romance comes first, and it's finance too, but it's mainly romance first. So, and this is very telling, because Drake is often cited as the emotional rapper, and he's sensitive. It's indicative of his numbers. These are very true of him. So it's not really probably a dig at him when people say that to him, because he knows he's sensitive and emotional. So anyway, so he's a number 6, romance, and also 6 is the number of home and family, community, adjustments, balance. That's why I said often things come to a head in the 6th year, in the 6th universal year, even a 6th personal year. Often things will come to a head, because it's like, you might have to adjust for all of the stuff that happened in that 5 year that you had previously. So this is the way these cycles go. So with Drake, his and which is his astronumeric descriptor, is a WSEN. So he's a water sign earth number. So just like Kendrick is an earth number, Drake's the other earth number. But with Drake, he is sensitive, emotional, steadfast, pragmatist. So imagine this battle between these two earth numbers. You got the intellectual thinking, steadfast pragmatist, and then you have a sensitive, emotional, steadfast pragmatist. This is why these two are at odds with each other. This is why this beef is like really locked in, and it got very personal. We know it got very personal. Now, obviously, we don't want people to hurt each other. Like, let's keep it, on the wax and all that kind of stuff. And I think they've done that very creatively. So, I just think that this goes a long way to tell us about some of the history of this beef and looking at why it's still going on right now. And then we're going to get into why it's going to go on into the next 9 cycle in the next 9 years. So this is very interesting. So let's finish getting through Drake. So his personal universal code is the 693. Again, remember that 3 is in opposition to Kendrick's 5. So this is where you see the energy from them having this beef from. So it's the 6 and the 8 are their leading if it's those are their individual frequencies. That 3 and the 5, those two numbers don't jive with each other too well. So that's where you can see the clashing of them. And then you got those big, battle axe mountains of an 8 clashing with each other. That's steadfast. They're not going to give up with the beef. Neither one of them are going to give into it. So this is interesting. Very, very, very interesting. And then with that Scorpio, I didn't put his planets up here, but I can just tell you his planets real quick. He is a Scorpio 6 person, so his planets are, and then he's got Mars with that being that Scorpio, so that's also war. So he also has that war in him. People break sensitive, but he's ready to go to battle. He's not going to give up. He's ready to go to battle, and he's very steadfast, just like Kendrick is. So just because he's got that little sensitivity doesn't mean it's not on for him and it's not war, because war, is the planet. Mars is the planet of war, and he's got that energy in him. So this is why we see how this battle has like gotten and grown to where it's at, and why it's been going on so long, and why I anticipate that it's going to go on for the next 9 cycles, at least up until we get to 2030, when we get to the 5 universal year. When we get into that 5 or 6 universal year, during this next cycle that we're about to enter, if they haven't like pieced it up by then, it's going to go through the rest of the years. But that 5 year will kind of be their chance to mend those fences. If they're going to do so. If they don't do it in this year, that's the next opportunity that they'll have. And I find that interesting, like I said, that their 3 and their 5 are in opposition. So Drake is in a 7 personal year because he's a personal year factor 7. That tells me Drake shouldn't be in a battle this year. He shouldn't be really, engaging in this battle with Kendrick at this point. It's time to succeed. And I really feel like so much has gone on, and he's just not going to succeed because it's not in him. But during the 7 personal year, it's not a time for him to be out and doing that kind of stuff. It's a time for him to look inward and be on like a self-reflective journey with himself, and things like that. So, it's very interesting. But 7 is also the law of attraction. So whatever he's putting out this year is what he's going to get back. So if all he's putting out is energy to battle and fight with Kendrick, he's going to have a big fight on his hands all year, and it's going to be tough for him. It's going to be a spiritual battle for him, and it's spiritual time for him. So these are the things that we look at, and it's very interesting. So, not the best cycle for Drake to be really going forward with it, but this is what he's doing, and he's a life path 4, so they're similar to in their grades of life. As Lloyd would say, he's in the 4th grade of life. So he's here to learn, like some responsibility, learning how to not to be slow to decide, to be honest and loyal and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that he has a problem with that, because there's a lot of rappers and a lot of people that have a problem with Drake and talk about a lot of those things that he's not doing. So, if he's not doing the things that he's supposed to do on his life path, that could be the reason why he's having some of this karma that he's having. And we'll see the karmic culmination cycle as we move forward a little bit ahead. And then let's just look at the name that they're most known by. We did Kendrick Lamar's. His was an 8. It matched his individual frequency, which is a good thing. Now with Drake, his is a 14-5. That is in direct opposition to his personal universal code. So under that name Drake, I know he's had success, but that name Drake is problematic. Like, in opposition to his code. So maybe that's why he named himself Drizzy, but that's also in opposition to his code. But if you do Drizzy Drake together, they act equal in 9. So I think that's actually what he calls himself, Drizzy Drake. But his name Drizzy alone is a 22. It's a master number 22. And he's also got that 77 in there with the double Z's. So, kudos to him. And that, just goes to show some of the success that he's had. So let's get on with the next slide and let's see what we got going here. All right, so now we're going to look at what's beef and looking at kind of the beginning of their beef. We already kind of talked about it a little bit, but we're going to get into the beginning of their beef. So the K Dot versus Drizzy, right? So this started in the 2011. Like I said, it started in a 4 universal year. And during that time, Drake was in an 11 personal year and Kendrick was in a 7 personal year. So N-word time for Kendrick, a spiritual time. And this could be telling of why their relationship fell apart. Who knows what Kendrick saw being out there on tour with him or dealing with him in that year, working with him, whatever kind of against, was going on that Kendrick might not have. Come on, baby. There we go. Because this thing is conking out. So I hope everything's good on the visual. All right. So then, and like I said, in 2012, that was the 5 universal year. That's the last time they collaborated together. And in 2012, again, to advance, Kendrick was in an 8 personal year. So, and that's in lockstep with his individual frequency and his name. So he was in an 8 personal year. So, maybe he's seen things that he didn't like about Drake and about the way he behaves or whatever the case. And this was his way of, them two falling out, but although I don't know, because I think the way they fell out is questionable, because I think the way it happened was Kendrick called out everybody, and then Drake was the only one that kind of got sensitive about it. But he's sensitive. He's a water sign, so he's going to be sensitive. And he's Scorpio, so he's fixed water. So he's analytical with it, and he notices everything. So anything you say about him, he's going to know it's about him, and he's going to feel that with that water, with that fixed water sign. So he's not going to give in on that. With that, that's really, really interesting. So anyway, so the last collaboration, like I said, was in 2012. And then in 2013, that's when the beef started popping off. That was a 6 universal year. And like I said, that's when wars pop off. Wars pop off a lot in 6 universal years. Not, just relegated to hip hop beef, but like wars in themselves, because whatever happened in that 5 universal year, whatever dramatic changes were made or whatever overindulgences were, partaked of in that 5 universal year, when you get to that 6 year and it's all, you're on the outside and it's all about family and, home and community and really adjustments and balance and harmony. If you don't have those things in that 6 year, the energy itself is going to make you produce it. And sometimes that means coming to a head and having a war or having a battle or having a disagreement or, dialect. And a lot of times that's what happens in that 6 universal year. So it's really a test of your ability to balance the things that you're dealing with and balance your way through your cycle, through your 1 to 9. Whatever you did in that 5 year, you got to be able to deal with that in that 6 year and make sure that it's under control and you've made the correct adjustments to be able to handle it. So, this is the energy that we look at and we see. So this is pretty cool, like looking at the beef and seeing these things just really pop out at you. So, so that was 2013. So what I did from there, I left 2013 there. And then because what they say when I did the research is from 2013 up to 2023 is when it was like they were still beefing, but it was like nothing like a whole song was made about the person. It was like subliminal little disses and stuff like that, like little subs going back and forth. You know how that goes. And then what ended up happening is when we got into 2023, which was the next 7 universal year, right? From that beef. So that was like 10 years later, from 2013, that's 10 years later, a whole cycle. You hear, even though we're like split in the middle of it, but it was still 10 years later. They get to this 7 universal year. Drake is in a 5 personal year in that year, and Kendrick was in a 1 personal year. This is when the beef reignited. Now, see how poignant that is? Drake was in a 5 personal year, and Drake was the one that reignited the beef. He started the beef back off by having J. Cole come on his album, and they did the song called First Person Shooter, which came out in 2023. So they're back to, it's a 7 universal year. So that's number one. Okay. And Drake being in that 5 personal year, Drake brought this on himself. He reignited this beef by doing that move that he did with J. Cole. He knew that would stir the pot because they mentioned Kendrick's name in that song. And so what ended up happening is that's a 5 personal year. Now, if we'll recall, 5 is an opposition to Drake. So he started this in a dramatic change of a year and for himself, for his own cycle, and he took a risk. He took a huge risk, and it didn't pay off for him because look at what he's going through now, right? So these are the things you got to look at about the moves you make and thinking about the things that you do and the cycles that you're doing them in, and should you be doing them or shouldn't you be doing them. So, if you guys want to know it about yourself, make sure you hit me up on numeralytics.biz and we'll get you your keys chart and do a good breakdown for you and let you know these things about yourself. But anyway, so we're back to this 2023. They reignited the flame. Okay. And then in 2024, which was the 8 universal year that we just came out of, that beef came to a sear. Okay. Because that's the year that they kept going back and forth. It that 2023 jumped it off because that happened like toward the end, and that jumped everything off. So, I think it's real interesting. And I'm not going to get into number 2 because I just kind of went over the beef house. Well, I'll get into it a little bit. So the second thing on here is to show you through that cycle of what the beef started at. So in 2013, Kendrick called out several rappers on the song. I think he was on a song with Big Sean. And he called out several mainstream artists. And they said, that Drake was really the only one that took it seriously. All the other artists that got called out didn't really respond to it in that way or whatever, where it had to culminate to how Drake's beef culminated. So then what happened was on October 29th, a little bit later that year in 2013, Drake dropped a song called The Language. And that was his rebuttal to Kendrick Lamar. So I don't, he wanted to start with Kendrick Lamar, so he woke up the beast when he wrote that rebuttal. And then Kendrick Lamar came back in the BET Cypher in 2013, and he called Drake a sensitive rapper. Now, I just told you Drake's astronumeric descriptor is sensitive, emotional, steadfast pragmatist. So yeah, he is sensitive. He's a sensitive person. So, Kendrick's on point. Kendrick's on point. So, I just think that's really interesting. So that's what, like I said, we ended the beef there. I just told you we ended the beef there. Then 10 years later in 2023, Drake reunited that beef. But let me tell you what happened before we get to 2023, which didn't help the situation on. In 2016, which was that 9 universal year to when their relationship started and their beef started, that 2016 was that 9 universal year to that. Obama was the president, and they asked Obama to pick Drake or Kendrick Lamar in an interview, and he picked Kendrick. So that Drake didn't like that. So this is what we see. This is what we talk about. So with Barack Obama picking Kendrick Lamar in that 9 universal year, that tells me, okay, we're not done with this beef in this 9 universal year. That's why we see this beef still going on right now, because that 2016, they didn't squash that beef that they had earlier in that cycle. They were still throwing the subs. It was still going back and forth. So we see how this stuff doesn't end. When you don't end stuff in 9 universal years like we're in right now, 2025, you're going to carry that energy and those problems on with you for the next 1 to 9 cycle, or at least the next 1 to 5 cycle. Because then in that 5 year, you'll have a chance to change it. But, this is what we deal with. And that's why it's important to know your numbers. This is why numbers matter, y'all. This is why we do the podcast, to let you know why numbers matter. And it's just show you that through everyday things that we look at, everyday things that we're consumed with, but really showing you the interior side of it. All right. So, and then in 2016, In 2016, Drake raps about inviting Kendrick Lamar on tour. So even in 2016, he still didn't learn his lesson. He's still coming back saying stuff to Kendrick Lamar. So the beef in that non-universal year, and like I said, now we see it carry over to the next cycle, that 2017 through 2025, which is the cycle we're in now, which we're ending this year, right? So we're gonna now look at the karmic cycle culmination. So let me pull this up on the screen so you guys can see it. That's done. We're done with this. We talked about what is beef, and we broke the word beef down and what it takes to deal with beef. All right. And I love Universal Supreme for being here. Make sure you guys put a like on this video, share this video with a hip hop fan, share it with everybody. Get the word out. Come subscribe to BTV, Black Education Vision, or Numeralytics if you want to strictly learn about astronumerology and get different insights on people, places, and things. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. You are the Universal Supreme, and I love you. I love us. All right, let's get on with it. Thank you so much. And I'm going to get to you guys, the Universal Supreme, at the end of the show. Trust me, I'm going to get to all of your comments, and I'm going to engage with you guys because that's my thing. I love you guys, but thank you for being here. So we're in the 8th universal year, right? Last year, 2024. So this is when everything started culminating. So like I said, when we're going through these cycles, when you get to that 8th universal year, that's the cycle of, it's the karmic cycle. It's what have you put in from 1 to 7? Did you make it through 7? Did you weather your storm through 7 and stick with your goals? If you did, in 8, you're going to get everything you got back. But what you put in is what you get out in the 8th universal year. That's number 1. Number 2, it's a harvest cycle. It's a pregnancy cycle in the way that it's a birth of new ideas, a birth of businesses, or just a birth, a real birth. It's just expansion. It's kind of like an expansive cycle, but in a way that it's like harvested. It's what you put in. It's the work. So in this 8th universal year, you're also going to get your karma, and that's what we're looking at now. So right now in the 8th universal year in 2024, when all of this really popped off, Kendrick he was in an 11 personal year, which culminated back to when they first met. And Drake was in a 6 personal year. Now you would think that this would be a good personal year for Drake, right? Because he is a 6 person. But let me explain something to you about your individual frequency and and it matching your personal year. Normally, yes, it's a favorable time for you and you're going to find some favorable things. But you also have to understand that you can also have unfavorable things happen to you in that time, because it's really just a time for a milestone to happen to you. So that could be something negative or something. It could be a death of somebody. It could be, like he got caught up in this scandal and, things because of whatever he was doing in his previous cycle. So it's not always going to be rainbow and sunshines when you're in the same personal year as your individual frequency. It's not always going to be that. And I'm a testament of that, because in my 2 personal year, my mother passed away in my 2 personal year, and I'm a 2 person. So that wasn't a good thing for me, so it's not always something that's going to be good to happen to you. You might have other favorable things going on, but there's also a chance that you can have something tragic happen too. So it's just really a milestone, a change of something that really you'll always remember. That's normally what those milestones mean when you're in a personal year that matches your frequency, or you're in a year that adds up to your frequency, or anything like that. So that's normally what that means. So that's also a real reason why we got to know our numbers, you guys. So let's get into this karmic year culmination between Kendrick and Drake, you guys. So remember what Drake did, how he reignited that beef in now, why would he do this in a 7th universal year? This is what I'm talking about. He did this in the 7th universal year. And if we look at that date, October 24th, that was his birthday. So I see why he did it. And he probably felt like, that's his reputation. He started his reputation cycle that day. But it probably wasn't the smartest thing to start your reputation cycle with starting out beef with somebody, especially somebody that's as steadfast and pragmatic. I'd be making words up, so we're gonna go with pragmatic. Someone that's as steadfast and pragmatist as he is, because Kendrick has that same quality in him. And we also can note from this date that the October is the preview season. The preview season for the following year starts in October. So he started that preview season out with beef. That tells me that his next year is going to be filled with beef, and it was. So see how numbers don't lie. This is why numbers matter. This is telling me this right here. And also he started this beef with him. It was a 7 universal year. I'm looking at it. That's an 8 universal month. That's Kendrick's number. You started with this man in the month that was favorable to him. So I don't think that was just like poking the bear. You want to poke the bear, you're gonna poke the bear, you're gonna get what the bear gives you back. So don't poke the bear, and I think that that's interesting that we see that. So yeah, so it wasn't the best thing. And what happened in that year, he put out the first person shooter. So J. Cole and him were on there and, buddying it up. And Kendrick didn't like that very much. So now we get into the following year, which is that 2024, the karmic cycle year that I was just saying. And, that was an 11 universal month for Kendrick and a 1 universal day for him. And he dropped like that. And that was the rebuttal to the first person shooter song. I believe he called J. Cole out in that song. And I think that's when J. Cole conceded because he seen, I don't think he wanted to get involved with the beef that they had going on. So he kind of conceded out of it. And then what happened was in April, which was a 3 universal month, which, Drake got to be careful because in that 3 universal month, you shouldn't be you're in a 6 personal, he was in a 6 personal year, he's in a 3 universal month. That means scandal. That means, too much excess of anything, it can cause scandal, too much running off at the mouth or gossiping. So, it's really not a favorable time for him to do a lot of the stuff that he's doing. So that tells me that he doesn't really have insight on that, because if he did, maybe he wouldn't, but he's probably working from an emotional state because he's an emotional person. And this just, not me saying he's emotional. His astronumeric descriptor, tells us that he's an emotional person. So anyway, so he dropped push-ups, and that's when Drake really got personal, because I think that's when they said he called out Kendrick Lamar's wife on that one. And then that very same day, he dropped another song called Tailor Made Freestyle. And that song had AI of Snoop Dogg and Tupac on it. So he had like the AI voice of them on there. And Tupac's estate didn't like that. So Tupac's estate sent Drake a cease and desist and made him take that down. So that tailor-made freestyle, even though it was a diss against Kendrick Lamar, it was not allowed to stay up on the internet. I don't believe. I believe he had to take that down. He had a cease and desist. So he did respectfully take that down, which was his best move, because he got enough smoke with Kendrick. He don't want to start. He's trying to start a war with the West Coast, and that's not smart. So then what Kendrick did, and then what Kendrick did, he came back and he dropped Euphoria. So we see he came back, he dropped Euphoria, and he did this on a 6 universal day. 6 is one of Drake's numbers, and that's Drake was in his 6th personal year that year. So you see how just because that's your individual frequency doesn't always mean you're going to have good luck with it. And then with that 6 being a number of adjustments and balance, whatever Drake got going on, I think a lot of this is his karma coming on him. I mean, I don't know about his personal affairs, but I think I've heard enough, to know that they're not always above board. So this is what happens when you engage in this kind of stuff or whatever. And really, like I said, he started all this stuff at a bad time. He set his own year off by doing this in October of 2023. Set this off for himself. It's all, he did that. So then we get to Kendrick again. So he dropped that on April 30th, and then a few days later, he dropped Euphoria, and then a few days later on May 3rd, he dropped 616 in LA, which is kind of a diss. Well, it is a diss toward Drake, but it's also a play on making fun of the way Drake does his titles, because he always has titles like that with a time and a place or something like that. So Kendrick's savvy with it. I expect nothing less from a Gemini. They're very quick with it. They're very smart, intellectual thinkers. Like his combination alone, a thinking, steadfast person. Like he's thinking long and hard about how to dish you for the long game. He's in it for the long game. And he's in it for the long game in an intellectual manner, where he's using his skills of deduction to like annihilate you and take you apart. And that's why I think in this battle, why he wins, and why he has won, because he just has he is more of the wherewithal. And also, we want to get even deep in looking at the battle of the earth numbers, the 6 and the 8, they're supposed to, get along. Ideally, normally they do. And I think they did have a little harmony at first, obviously, but then, whatever goes sour in relationships goes sour. But when you look at that 6 and that 8, they both have a connotation that goes toward justice, but 6 is more like balance, harmony, and justice and adjustments on like the level home, family, community. And the 8 is like a divine justice number. It's the number of divine justice. So that tells me, that the 8 has a little bit of an edge there over the 6. If we look at them head to head that way, it has more of that power of concentration. It's a maturity number, so it's more mature. So it has that. He's got that pool. He's got the ancestors on his side. He's an 8 person. That doesn't surprise me. Would not like us. Look at the spirit that it invokes when it comes out. So it's just so many things that point to Kendrick's going to win this battle like that. If Drake had an astronumerologist like myself, he probably wouldn't have started that crap with Kendrick on October 24th on his birthday, because I would have advised him not to do that. Starting his reputation cycle off that way. And also, not only it being his reputation cycle, it's also the preview cycle for the next year. So whatever you're doing really in that month is going to be indicative of how your next year is going to go. So these are kind of things that you got to know why your numbers matter. And then let's finish this up real quick with this numbers. So then look at the dates. Like they're like dropping it back and forth. This tells you how serious these two are. These are earth numbers, guys. This is that earth in them going head to head. Like neither one of them would give up. They're very steadfast. They'll ride it out till the wheels fall off, these earth numbers. There's rock. They're like a mountain, like a volcano, unmovable sometimes. It's just the way it is. So we look at, and when we get to May, like I said, Kendrick dropped the 616 in LA. And then that same day, Drake dropped Family Matters. That same day, see, that tells me they're prepared. They got this stuff lined up already. They already ready to go with the rebuttal. Kendrick dropped Meet the Grams. And he dropped that 1 hour after Drake dropped Family Matters. So this shows me how, important this is to both of them. Like they're not playing. And then the very next day, Kendrick Lamar on May 4th, 2024, he was in a 4 universal month. No, that was a 4 universal month and an 8 universal day. Saturn all the way through in Aquarius. So funny. Because Saturn is was the co-ruler of 4 in the Odin application. But I still consider Saturn a co-ruler of 4, but also Uranus. So that tells me that not like us. That's why this song hit, y'all. That 8 universal day, legacy, power of concentration, power, finance, all of that, like everything, on task, thoughtful, well thought out with the power of concentration. With that 4, the unexpected, it was unexpected, the brevity, the level, the gravity of not like us. It was like an unexpected type of energy. No one knew it was coming like that out of left field. And the impact that it had, it's like the spirit in it, the power behind it. He had the power of the ancestors. Like that 8 was working for him on that day. Saturn was working for him on all levels. In that work that they put in through all of this, it really came out in that song. And not only that, the Not Like Us song is a 18-9. 18 is already a spiritual number that borders on the material and the spiritual side. So it's the spirituals, like that borderline, ability and energy. And that 9 is, we're in a 9 universal year now. He won 5 Grammys for the song. The title adds up to a 9, the base number. And, 9 is the number of confrontations. It's the number of, it's argumentative, So this is the energy. This shows you the importance of knowing the numbers, and it shows you the energy that they carry. So, he was very successful with the Not Like Us. I mean, it's lockstep with his individual frequency on the day that it came out. And he really did well with it. And I'll tell you, Drake the very next day dropped The Heart Part 6, which is, the play back on Kendrick, like how he played on his 616 in LA. But it was so Not Like Us was so powerful. It was like Drake might as well not even had to drop that song. Like, I don't even think I heard that song, and I don't care to hear it. Like, after Not Like Us, it ain't nothing else to say. That was his ether. Like, Not Like Us is the ether of this generation. If you're of my generation, you remember Nas Z. When Nas ether Jay-Z, this is where we get to. Okay, so now let's get to the bottom of it, guys. And this is why this is going to continue out through the next cycle. Just like we just seen, it's been going on through the cycles, and we proved that already. Now we're looking at how this is going to continue out through the next cycle, because now we're in 2025. It's a 9 universal year. So as we know, this is year transformations, endings, and all that kind of stuff. Get rid of things that no longer serve you, getting rid of them so you don't carry them into your next into the next 1 universal year. Well, Kendrick started the 9 universal year off at the Grammys, winning 5 Grammys, which is Drake's opposition number, by the way, which we already talked about, winning 5 Grammys for the song Not Like Us, which adds up to a 9. So this is what we see, you guys. And then the second reason is, then he did the Super Bowl just the other day, just yesterday night, he did the Super Bowl. He did a halftime show, and there was a lot of symbolism in the halftime show. This is not a show to get into that. There's plenty of people talking about the symbolism of it. I'm talking about the numbers, not the symbolism right now. And I know sometimes they're 1 and 1, but I'm not looking at that angle of it. I'm looking at just the astronumeric portion, really, of Drake and Kendrick's beef. So I'm not talking about the symbolism of the Super Bowl here. But yeah, he did the Super Bowl in the 9 universal year. So this tells me, especially after he looked right into the camera at the Super Bowl and like said, "Hey Drake," and his line, "I heard you like I'm young," and all that kind of stuff. Once he did that and looked right in that camera, I'm like, yo, this beef is not ending this year, which tells me that we're dealing with this beef at least until 2030, y'all. At least till 2030. I'm gonna give it to 2030, the next 5 universal year. If they don't squash it up by then, and into that year, at that time, then it's going to continue to go through the cycle. I really believe it's going to go through the cycle. I think these earth numbers are in it for the long haul. They're mountains. They don't move. They're stubborn. 6s are also could be stubborn and dogmatic. They got to have it their way. 8s can be like the same way. If it ain't their way, they ain't dealing with it. They going to walk away from it, like so, or whatever the case. So these are the energies we're dealing with. They're either not going anywhere, and it would behoove Drake to really do his best to get rid of this, because he's not going into a favorable time for him to be dealing with all this kind of stuff. He's in a 7 personal year. He should be really inner reflecting. Maybe he should inner reflect on some of the things that were said about him in these songs. And if they're true, do some things to change them. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just looking at the numbers. That's what the numbers tell me. So that's why I really don't think that we're going to get rid of this beef, because they're in this 9 universal year, and the beef is at an all-time high. Drake got a lawsuit out on Kendrick and everything. So I also want to mention one more thing that I forgot to mention. Drake's name here, what is it? I think it's Kendrick's first name is a 6. It's a 24/6, and Drake's birthday is a 6, right? So that tells me that Kendrick is the teacher here to teach Drake what he needs to know, because it's often said that your name is the teacher. So really, he would attract that number, would be attracted to him. But it's like Kendrick's the boss in this one. Like, Kendrick's got the upper hand with a lot of his numbers, and he's also got the upper hand with his astronumeric descriptor, having that Mercury behind him. He's got Mercury and Saturn. And I'll also give him I'll give him Mercury and Saturn. I won't give him the other one, because that was with something else. And then we got Drake that has, he's got Mars. That's good for Drake. But then he's got Venus. So, that's what it is. Those descriptors and all that kind of stuff is why we see these two with this beef. So that's really it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me get to the family and see who's everybody that's on the check-in. I want to say peace and love to Teresa Miller. Bright and awesome greetings to you, Queen some technical difficulties, but it's to be expected when you go live. Peace and love to Dartmouth. I know you saw my birds annihilate those Chiefs yesterday. So salute to the Eagles for that. Even though you're a Atlanta fan, but salute to the Eagles. Salute my Eagles. And then my baby girl on the check-in. Love you, baby. Thank you so much. And peace and love to Botanical Bro. Peace, brother. Peace, King. King's up to you. Nice image tool. Thank you. Thank you very much. And wise and pretty woman. And I love that because I love compliments. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. And then you said, greetings, Queen B. Do you plan on doing the numbers in regards to Trump and the Gaza affair? I don't know. I might, you might tempt me to do that. I haven't, honestly, I haven't really tuned in with a lot of the stuff that Trump's doing because he's all over the place. He's a Gemini. He's born June 14th, so he's a Gemini 5 person. So he's got that double 5 energy with him. His key numbers are the 5, 6, and 9. So he's got a lot going on. I did the other cycle show where I talked about a lot of what Trump's doing and the stuff that he's doing. You know what? Botanical Bro, I'm glad you said that because you reminded me that I did. He's got a lot of connection to that, all that's going on over there, and I uncovered that in that cycle show that I did. If you guys missed the show that I did on the 9 cycle, it's on my page, and I covered a lot of the things that we carried into the cycle. And a lot of the things that's going on with the Gaza Strip and with the Hamas war, Trump was instrumental in because in that one universal year when he got inaugurated in 2017, in the first universal year, in the first presidency term, he signed a thing that really, I forget what it was, so I don't want to quote it here, but I uncovered something he did with that area that was like unheard of. Like every other president said they would do it and they didn't. But he did it. So maybe I will do it because I think what he's doing now with them kind of correlates to what he started with them in that 1 year. So that might be something interesting to look at. And thank you so much, Botanical Bro, for giving me another rabbit hole yet to go down because you know the Queen will go down the rabbit hole. Jackie Washington said, Kendrick said throughout the entire beef that his ancestors, yes, Jackie, that makes sense because like I said, he's an 8 individual frequency and that's that old soul frequency. It's the frequency of the ancestors. So I do believe that he had them on his side. And he said he has a total of 22 Grammys, master number. Yes, I didn't know he had 22 Grammys. That's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool that he won 5 of them, Drake's opposition number for the song that he did against Drake in the 9 universal year. So I thought that was cool too. Something is happening with your sound. Yes, Sonya, I know, and it gets better. So if you hung in there, Queen, I appreciate you. Yep, my internet conked out, and I'm thankful to those that hung in there. The sound is muffled. Hopefully, you guys worked past that because we did get past the sound, and maybe you're just coming on it and it started over. We did have a sound muffled. And then Jackie said that Kendrick dropped 616 on Father's Day, which was a 1 day before his birthday. Okay, all right, Jackie. All right, there you go. I love that. All right, thank you for saying that. I love it. You must be an astronumerologist. She's got to be. So that's pretty cool. It's very interesting, and that's why numbers matter, you guys. This is why we have to know our numbers. We have to be in tune with ourselves. This is the year, like I've been telling you guys, to get in tune with your own spirit and really focus on what you need to do. Get in touch with yourself. Learn how to balance your own energy and learn how to love yourself. I love us. We're the Universal Supreme. That's who we are. We're the Cosmic Collective Universal Supreme. So I always tell people, CC us. That's our initial, CC us. CC us in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let me know, just like Botanical Bro, he's always challenging me for these topics, so I love it. Drop me a topic on something you want me to do a show on. I'm happy to do that. And if you guys want to get a reading, hit me up at numerological.biz, or you can text me on the moon line. I kind of prefer you text me, but either way you go, you can check out the site to see what I have to offer. We also have besmartclothing.com, where we have a huge 20% sale going on until January 20th. You'll see what you have to put in on the top. I forget what I made the code, but it's 20% off, so that's a really huge sale. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. So thank you guys so much. I don't want to hold you too much longer. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. And that's it. I'm very, you know what? I know that's not it. I So I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 8 unit. You see, I got my Eagles faux Super Bowl ring on. And I want to get you guys to know we are having a show tomorrow night with the astronumerologist Portia Cooper. And we did a Valentine's Day show in honor, well, it's not really a Valentine's Day show, but it's the truth about twin flames and soulmates. We touched on Valentine's Day in honor of Valentine's Day coming up. So the Queen went in. If you seen, she was on the show before. She did the Saturnalia breakdown. So she went in about twin flames and soulmates. So if you don't know what that is, make sure you tune in tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. sharp. I'll have the Queen on, and we are going to chop it up about that. And you guys are really going to enjoy that show. So make sure you tune into that, and make sure you stay tapped in, because we also still have this show coming for you. The blueprint is still coming. That date's wrong on there. We had to reschedule a couple times, but just so you know, that's still coming. We didn't get to it yet. So I just really want to truly thank all of you guys for being here and being a part of the Universal Supreme. And remember, I love us, and you should love us too. And make sure you have your numbers, because numbers definitely matter. We're up 8. I'll see you guys tomorrow night for up 9. Peace and love to the Universal Supreme.